The True Crime Society podcast contains adult themes and violence and is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the True Crime Society podcast with Stephanie and Olivia. It's Thursday, July 20th right now. I don't even know where to go.
I've had a big week.
It's been a crazy week. Maybe that's why I don't even know where to start, because there's just been so much happening between Long Island serial killer, Carly. We just did the episode on Rudy. My life's also been chaotic. I feel like I was saying I feel like I'm having a sensitive day today for no reason. I'm not even PMSing, so I don't have that as an excuse. But I had some comfort tater tots and a Coke Zero before this, so I suppose I'm feeling a bit better.
Well, that's good.
Oh, and also, before we get into it, if you don't want to hear us chat for a couple minutes, there's a timestamp in the episode notes. You can just click that, and if you're on Spotify, it'll bring you right to it. You can just fast forward. And I say it time and time again because we still get comments that are like, too much chat. Like, please.
I feel like they're just rolling off the back now. We can't do much else. We say it and write it every single week. So
I know. I just want to make sure to say it for anyone who's new. It's like, I don't care what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Anyways, go on with what you were saying.
Oh, I can't even remember what I was going to say now.
We're saying it's a big week.
I was just going to say big week. Yeah. Like there's been a lot happening. I feel like in one episode we spoke about how things have been pretty quiet, kind of. And when we say quiet, obviously just, not many big updates or big cases. And then this week it's just been full on.
Yeah, it's been chaotic. I'm exhausted mentally from it all. We do want to give a thank you to everyone who has joined Patreon. It means so much to us. It brightens up my day every time I get a little notification saying that someone new joined, and it just makes us feel really special and happy. We did hop on and do a quick episode, not even episode, like honestly like a 20-minute chat.
Yeah.
Just about the stuff going on with Carly, because it's not really enough for a full real episode. And this episode's already going to be super, super long as it is. So if you're interested in hearing us talk about that casually, very off the cuff, we did it kind of last minute. That'll be on Patreon. But this episode, we're going to be talking about a lot of details with Long Island serial killers. So buckle in and get ready for that.
Yeah, this is an unexpected update. I believe, like, no one knew this guy, wasn't on anyone's radar. It's kind of the same as Richard Allen in Delphi. It's a very big update, and also they've released so much information, which is great for us.
Yeah. I do have one interesting personal story. If for those who are interested and don't fast forward, I saw my first dead body in the wild. I think I've talked about how I live across from a little creek. It's
not really little. Like when I saw it, it was quite rushing.
Dried up. I feel like it was dried up when you guys were here.
Oh, well, maybe I'm talking about the waterfall bit. Maybe that was still
but even
rushing.
I showed you the video though after it flooded, right? It was crazy.
Yeah.
But it goes between being kind of dried up where you can literally see the rocks on the bottom, and when it rains a lot, it's like rushing rapids. I always say it's small because it's not that wide, but it's probably more aggressive and like a little deeper than you think. There is a waterfall. There's a lot of rocks. But anyways, Mike and I had just ordered DoorDash, and we were just about to eat, and all of a sudden all these like fire trucks, ambulances roll up right in front of my apartment building. People running everywhere. We're like, what is going on? So we just open our window and we're sticking our heads out the window watching. And it looked like they were looking for someone who had fallen in the creek. They had like life preservers, but it seemed like they couldn't find the person. And the creek is a little more aggressive than it has been because of all the crazy rain we've gotten. So they're running all over, like looking, trying to find this person. And I follow some like scanner 911 Facebook accounts around here. So I looked and I saw that there was like a potential drowning in the creek for the 911 call. Mike and I were like, let's go downstairs and see what's going on. So we went, we're watching, and we heard a guy be like, oh, they got her on the other side. They were pulling out this woman's dead body out of the creek. They had to bring down ladders and they were trying to get her out of the water. And it was crazy because everyone in the town's just watching them like pull this woman out of the water. And it was really sad. You could immediately tell that, like, you don't want to just be like, oh, she's definitely dead, but she was like blue. Then the next day it came out that I guess she was on the other side of the creek where I live. And there's kind of like apartments over there. And there's like a 15-foot hill embankment. And they were taking pictures and she was holding her child taking pictures. I don't know if other people were taking the pictures or what, or if they were selfies. And she lost her balance and fell backwards and fell into the creek. So I don't know if she like hit her head or something or couldn't swim, but she fell into the creek and she ended up drowning and passing away. Just like such a sad story, and one of those ones that really makes you be like, wow, you never know when.
No.
That's it.
It's just crazy that you can just be taking photos 1 second and then that's it.
Yeah.
Like something
it
that we've
happens
all
so
done
fast.
a million times. Yeah.
So yeah. Anything interesting in your week?
No, it's been pretty quiet here. Kids have gone back to school after the winter break, which is good because it means that winter's nearly over, which is not really hopeful. You know, I'm hopeful it's still got a while to go. But no, nothing really much going on, pretty quiet. Got a nice ladies' lunch tomorrow, so I love a good lunch, so I'm excited for that. I feel like most of my updates are about food.
Me and Mike were
As
just talking
usual.
about, have you seen that TikTok or online trend about girl dinners?
No.
I guess it's like a thing on TikTok where how when husbands or boyfriends are away, girls just eat like fucking anything and call it dinner. It'll be like one will be just like a little bit of cinnamon toast or like a little bit of cheese, just like snacks, and that's our dinner. And
Oh,
it's
is
so
it?
true because when Mike's away, well, sometimes I'll DoorDash and I'll just get stuff that I wouldn't normally DoorDash when he was here, just like gross fried food or whatever. Or you just like have little mozzarella sticks or some toast, a little bit of cheese, and call it a day.
Even I remember when I was growing up, and even my dad would ever go away, like the dinners we'd have like baked beans on toast, like just the easiest dinners. Because I don't know why people make an effort more.
It's either
when the
just like
man's there.
super easy or very
Yeah.
like self-indulgent.
Yeah.
So I think that's funny because that's very me. And he's going to be switching to working night soon. So I'm like, that's what I'm going to be doing when you're not
Every
here.
night.
Just have some cinnamon sugar toast, girl dinner.
I am going to see Barbie on Sunday, so I'm excited about
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah. I told Luella, my daughter, has been busting to go and see it. So my other daughter is going already on Saturday. So I said, oh, I'll take you on Sunday. So yeah, we're booked in. She's picked the best seats apparently in the cinema.
Oh.
And she said to me this morning, Mum, you've got to wear pink. I was like, okay. I'll
That's
find
cute.
something.
I haven't been to an actual movie theater since before the pandemic.
Really?
February before the pandemic, I saw Sonic.
Oh, and you still remember?
Yeah, because me and Mike always joke, I'll be like, the last movie we saw in theaters was Sonic the Hedgehog.
I feel like I haven't seen many adult movies since the pandemic. I feel like all the ones I've been to, I've taken the kids. But there also,
Yeah.
I feel like there hasn't really been many movies. Like it took them a while to kind of pick it back up after the shutdown.
I don't know. Maybe I'll see Barbie if you say it's good. I don't know if Mike will be interested, but
Like the trailers are like, I know they usually sometimes show the best parts in the trailers, but it actually looks kind of funny and witty and stuff like that. So anyway.
I just love the jokes about the Barbie marketing team because it's everything everywhere. I saw someone take a picture of like a pink sunset. It was like, wow, the Barbie marketing team's really going all out.
I will keep you posted. I'll update you all next week.
Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the updates with the Long Island serial killer arrest of a man named Rex Heuermann. He's 59 years old from Massapequa Park in New York. He was arrested on the 13th of this month, July.
After years of unanswered questions, a break in the unsolved Gilgo Beach murders out of Long Island, as officials announce a suspect is now in custody. Multiple news outlets now reporting the suspect is 59-year-old Rex Heuermann of Massapequa Park.
Rex Heuermann, I'm an architect, I'm an architectural consultant, I'm a troubleshooter, born and raised on Long Island.
Local TV stations report Heuermann was taken into custody in Long Island early Friday morning when a special task force surrounded his home. An architect, Heuermann told YouTube reporters last year he's worked with New York City's Department of Buildings since the late 1980s.
I do troubleshooting, architectural troubleshooting, and negotiations with the building department.
But it was 23 years after his architecture career began in 2010 when the first body was recovered in the so-called Gilgo Beach murders. The investigation started in 2010 after escort Shanann Gilbert went missing near Gilgo Beach. In the search for Gilbert, investigators recovered 4 bodies on the beach, all women in their 20s who were working as escorts. In total, 9 women, 1 man, and a toddler have been discovered along the beach about an hour east of Manhattan. After the bodies were discovered, the murders mysteriously stopped. Just 1 year before his arrest, Heuermann said the most important aspect of his job is patience.
After all those years, what do you think is the most important qualities a person in your position dealing with the DOB must have?
Patience.
That's funny. I was hoping you would say that.
Yeah. Patience, and I don't like to use the word tolerance, but sometimes you have to.
In the interview, Heuermann said working with people was the most interesting aspect of his career.
But it's the people, how they're all so different, and how you deal with the people, I think, is one of the more interesting aspects that have come out of this.
So there's tons of information, so we're going to do our best to go through all of that. We did do a 2-part in-depth episode on the Long Island serial killer back in 2020. It's kind of one of the first episodes we did, so it probably kind of sucks. It probably doesn't suck, but we're definitely a little more shy and reserved. So keep that in mind if you go back and listen to them. Yeah, and become more confident.
Yeah.
Even though we get bullied all the time, but still we're confident.
We know a little bit more what we're doing, hopefully.
In this episode, we'll do like a quick recap kind of the victims that are involved specifically in this arrest, because this is specifically about the Gilgo 4 girls whose bodies were all kind of found together, but the Long Island serial killer altogether, they believe, could have as many as like 10 victims, so there's all different. And he could have even more. They're looking into other cold cases now because they think he could be connected to other things. For the sake of time in this episode, we're just going to focus kind of on this current arrest situation.
Yeah, I absolutely think, we'll talk about it at the end of theories too, but I really think he's responsible for most of them, if not all of them.
And maybe even more.
Yeah. I did an Instagram poll, and I think 80% of people agreed, and they said that they believed that he was responsible for most of them.
All right, so in terms of background in this case, the Gilgo Beach serial killings were a series of murders between 1996 and 2011, in which the remains of up to 18 people were found in Gilgo Beach on the south shore of Long Island. So most of the known victims were sex workers who advertised on Craigslist. The perpetrator in the case is known variously as the Long Island serial killer, or sometimes people will abbreviate that to LISK, L-I-S-K, the Manorville Butcher, and the Craigslist Ripper. Also,
Gilgo Beach Killer, I've seen there's a whole bunch
Beach Killer. So 4 of the victims were termed the Gilgo 4. The remains of Melissa Barthélemy, 24, were the first to be discovered in the case during the search on December 11th, 2010, according to the Suffolk County Police Department. And 2 days later, investigators discovered the remains of 3 additional victims. There's Maureen Brainard Barnes, Amber Costello, and Megan Waterman, strewn across a half-mile stretch on Gilgo Beach. They were all like 20 to 30 feet away from each other, very close together, and they were all kind of placed in similar fashions.
A twist in the case of the bodies of 4 women found by a Long Island roadway. Police say forensics prove missing prostitute Shanann Gilbert is not one of the dead.
There are no suspects at this time.
State police have added 10 cadaver dogs to the search.
And we want to make sure we didn't miss anything.
They are scouring the area around Gilgo Beach where the bodies were discovered.
We're going to expand the search throughout that community over the next few days, and we're going to go over the same territory.
The focus of the investigation is on identifying the bodies.
But they are decomposed and visual identification is not possible.
Still many unanswered questions.
Are you able to tell yet how these women were killed?
No.
Police departments from other jurisdictions and states, as well as families of missing persons, have been contacting the Suffolk County PD.
They actually found their bodies. A lot of people will bring up Shanann Gilbert in connection with this case, who is, a lot of people will say they think she could be a victim, but police did say that they believe she ran off into a marsh and actually accidentally drowned. She was another sex worker, but they found these bodies while they were looking for her. So that's kind of how she ties into this case as well.
Authorities in New York are getting some high-tech help from the FBI in their search for a possible serial killer. Police say the federal agency will send helicopters and airplanes, both equipped with cameras, to scour more than 15 miles of an ocean highway in search of more human bodies. At least 10 sets of remains have been found in the past several months near a highway leading to the Long Island Beach and State Park. The most recent discovery came earlier this week.
We're hoping the technology will help identify skeletal remains that may still be out there.
The parkway is surrounded by a tangle of underbrush and evergreens that have proved difficult to maneuver for cadaver dogs and officers. On Wednesday, divers searched the waters north of the parkway for more possible victims.
Please keep in mind that this is not an episode of CSI. This is an intensive, long-term investigation that includes the use of sophisticated technology as well as good old-fashioned detective work.
Officers found the first remains while searching for a missing New Jersey prostitute who was last seen in a nearby community nearly a year ago. She still hasn't been found.
So currently, Rex, what a name. Like, is that even short? It's not even short for anything. Like, you just name your baby Rex?
Yeah, Rex. It's definitely not short. Like, I feel like his name is just Rex. Maybe you could shorten something to Rex, but... And his brother's name's Craig. Rex and Craig.
So Rex has been charged with first and second degree murder of 3 of the Gilgo 4 girls, Amber, Melissa, and Megan. And it said in the document that they released on this that more charges are going to be coming for Maureen's murder. They just kind of had to prematurely arrest him before they were ready, but we'll get into that a little further along. So this is what we know about Rex so far. He was born in 1959 to Dolores and Theodore, and he also had a brother named Craig. This seems to be kind of random, but apparently Theodore was an aerospace engineer who built satellites, but was also working as a cabinet maker.
Very varied careers.
Yeah, you could just do anything back in the day. Records show that Theo Heuermann died in 1975 when he was 50 years old. Rex would have been around 11, and Dolores, current day, would be around 93, and she is still alive at the time of recording as far as we know.
I've thought about her. Like, imagine being 93 and finding out that your son has probably done all this horrible stuff.
I'd be like,
it's crazy.
Just take me. In 1981, Rex and randomly Billy Baldwin graduated from Alfred G. Burner High School in Massapequa, town of Oyster Bay, and Billy made a statement about the arrest. He said, "Married, 2 kids, architect, average guy, quiet, family man. Mind-boggling. Massapequa is in shock." Rex went on to earn a bachelor's degree in architectural technology at the New York Institute of Technology in Westbury, New York. In 1988, when Craig Heuermann was 22, his brother, he was driving while high and intoxicated, and he killed a police officer. So according to the New York Post, Craig was driving 61 miles per hour during the 9:25 a.m. accident and was already in an intoxicated and coked up condition at the time. He slammed head-on into a car driven by City Housing Authority Police Captain Winion Buskey, who's 51 years old. He was pronounced dead at the scene, according to a Newsday report at the time. So after pleading guilty, Craig started a 3-year prison sentence for criminally negligent homicide at a since-closed minimum security prison in Gabriel's in upstate New York. He was paroled in August 1990, months after his initial review was denied, according to the state corrections records. So that's what was going on with his brother Craig at the time. Back to Rex in September 29th, 1990. He and his first wife, Elizabeth Ryan, got married at St. Peter's Church in New Brunswick, Middlesex County, New Jersey. Craig was his best man, and at the time, he was an intern architect at Greer Construction Corps in Freeport, New York.
There's a kind of wedding announcement, and you can see Rex, he's wearing the glasses. We've had so many messages. He's got the serial killer glasses.
He's got the serial killer glasses.
Chunky glasses. His wife has got kind of a veil, like it's a very 90s wedding outfit. It's like I don't know. I'll put the photo up on the Instagram so you guys can see. But yeah, it's a little wedding announcement for them. There's tons of photos. Like he's very out there, and he's has always been very public. So they definitely never tried to hide.
No, he's got those big glasses. So red flag number 1. The house where he grew up in Massapequa Park is where he was still living when he was arrested. He purchased it from his mom, Dolores, in 1994 for $170,000, steal. This was the same year that he started his own company, RX Architecture Design. So his marriage to Elizabeth didn't last long, and in 1996 he married again. His second wife is Asa Ellerup, and that's who he's currently married to. Well, she's divorcing him, but was married to up until this. Rex became the stepfather of her son from a previous marriage. In the same year, she gave birth to their daughter, Victoria. And it seems like Rex's stepson has a disability or some sort of special needs. His name's not really out there or anything. I mean, we don't really need to know it. Who cares?
No, and the neighbours, we only know that because of comments from the neighbours, and there's also been some other things that have happened that have come out, like the food stamps, which the family got, and we think that's because of the son's disability.
Yeah, the town has been very chatty. I guess the grocery store said they used to come in and they would use food stamps at the grocery store, and that Rex was never with them. They all seemed a little sad, which it's easy to say in hindsight.
Yeah.
Would you have said that they always looked sad if you didn't know this? I don't know.
Does anyone look happy when they're really at the
No,
grocery store?
I'm fucking miserable at the grocery store. Good point. I hate grocery shopping. If you see me happy at a grocery store, you should be concerned. Rex seems to have been fairly successful in his career. You wouldn't know it by looking at his house, but his clients included Target, Foot Locker, Catholic Charities, and American Airlines. Part of his profile, which has since been taken down, read, "Throughout the years, Rex Heuermann has provided services to other city agencies, not-for-profit agencies, builders, developers, and individual owners of buildings in regard to ADA, NYC, and New York state codes, as well as zoning consultation." So despite living fairly modestly, Rex seems to have had some tax evasion issues. Nassau County records show that Rex was subject to 6 tax liens filed by the IRS in Nassau County between 2010 and 2021. According to the liens, he owed a total of more than $425,000 for taxes he failed to pay going back to 2005. And the IRS later filed tax lien releases showing that Rex repaid or no longer owed about $215,000 of that debt, with the most recent documents being filed in October 2022. So it seems like he wasn't paying his taxes. It also came out that him and Asa currently owe a total of more than $81,000 in personal income tax to the state. Rex also seems to be kind of a scammer, not shocking. But between 2014 and 2022, he's filed 4 different lawsuits in New York courts against drivers who he said hit him with their cars or caused car accidents that left him with serious and permanent personal injuries. 3 of the cases were either settled or discontinued, and there's still 1 ongoing. But I saw in the local news here, they were talking to one of the people about it, and it's basically, he's just lying about the extent of his injuries. He's trying to sue them for $5 million or something ridiculous. So he seems like that type of person. One was he said a taxi driver in New York City ran over his foot, things like that. If you have 4 different ones of those going.
It's so crazy to me too that now, if he is the Long Island serial killer, he was very open to putting himself into the legal system. Yeah, in it's just crazy. He really, again, do you know what? He did get away with it for a very long time, so why not, I guess. But
yeah. When asked in some court documents if he played sports, he said, really, only thing I competed in was competition rifle. Rex also had some professional trouble in 2007. In September of that year, a 7-story apartment building in Harlem that he had been hired to renovate was declared unsafe by fire officials who ordered at least 26 of the families to evacuate. So that's a little bit on him.
There's a lot, if you Google Rex Heuermann architect, there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes up, about his professional life.
Yeah, I feared it was going to bore you to death.
Yeah, I feel like even though he posted all those companies he'd apparently worked with on his website, I feel like he wasn't a great architect.
No, I think he was just peacocking and trying to look a lot better than he was. So, as we mentioned, he's been charged with 3 of the 4 Gilgo Beach murders so far. I'll go into a little bit about kind of what happened before the girls each went missing. Basically, one way they started narrowing down on a specific person was all the girls were contacted by a burner phone or were communicating with someone who was using burner phones right before they disappeared. So, for example, Maureen Brainard Barnes, she was reported missing in July 2007. So Maureen was last seen on July 9th, 2007 in New York City while she was working as a sex worker. On July 6th, her phone was contacted by a burner phone. Between the 6th and 8th, there were 16 interactions between her phone and the burner phone. So the last cell site location for Maureen's phone was at approximately 1156 in Midtown Manhattan near the 59th Street Bridge. Thereafter, Maureen's cell phone had no further activity until July 12th. On the 12th, which is 3 days after she disappeared, 2 outbound calls were made from Maureen's cell phone, checking her voicemail from a cell site near the Long Island Expressway. So basically, they started kind of tracking where these burner phones were being used then, which is kind of how they narrowed down a location of where this killer might be. Same with Melissa. She was last seen July 10th, 2009. She was contacted by a burner phone on the 3rd. Her phone was contacted by the burner phone on July 6th, 9th, and 10th. The 10th was the last day she was seen alive, and cell records indicate that the burner phone traveled from Massapequa to Midtown Manhattan. On July 11th and 12th, her phone was used to make multiple outbound calls, checking her voicemail. On July 17th, July 23rd, August 8th, August 19th, and August 26th, her phone was used to make taunting calls to Melissa's family members, which resulted in conversations with the killer, who they noted was male, and he admitted to killing and sexually assaulting Melissa, and those calls were placed in Midtown Manhattan. So we know now Rex worked in Midtown Manhattan and lived in Massapequa, so it seems like a lot of these pings were between those areas. Same with Megan Waterman. I won't go into all of it, but again, she was like contacted by the burner phone, leading right up to when she disappeared. So her phone traveled to Massapequa Park, and the last cell site location was Massapequa Park at approximately 3:11 a.m. Amber was another victim. Her scenario is what I would say led to him eventually being arrested. So I'll go into hers a little bit more, because her pimp that she worked with is the one who kind of saw him and was able to give at least some details on what he looked like in the car that he drove. So Amber was last seen alive on September 2nd, 2010, leaving her residence in West Babylon during the late evening hours while working as a sex worker. On September 1st, her phone was contacted by a burner phone at 11:33, and the burner phone connected to cell towers in Massapequa Park before traveling to West Babylon. The phone communicated again with Amber's at 12:05 a.m. on the 2nd. So basically, what happened then was Amber and the pimp that she worked for, they would set up, what do they call it? A ruse? A ruse. So basically, they would just try to con these people, and the pimp or friend or whoever would pretend to be Amber's boyfriend who was outraged and would start like a big dramatic fight. So then the client, who in this case was Rex Heuermann, would leave, and Amber would keep the money and she wouldn't actually have to do anything. That's what happened. And based on interviews of, I believe it's the pimp. I've seen people say that. So based on interviewing him, he said that the client was described as a large white male, approximately 6'4" to 6'6" in height. Like, Rex was tall. When you see him in pictures with these police officers, he's big, massive. Big guy. He said he was in his mid-40s, dark bushy hair, big oval style 1970s type glasses. Witness described him to police as appearing like an ogre, which is like spot on, honestly. Furthermore, a witness noticed a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche parked in the driveway of the residence. So that's kind of a different car. It's a type of pickup truck, but I wouldn't say it's super common. And in the end, it has ended up being green, which I'd say is even less common. So according to the witness, following the ruse, the client, Rex, said to him that he was just her friend, and he was like, "Tell her I'll give her a call," and he walked out the door. Then at approximately 1 a.m. that night, after the ruse had been perpetrated, the burner cell phone sent a text message to Amber's phone, which stated, "That was not nice. That was not nice. So do I credit for next time?" Which is like an incoherent text. But it shows that this guy was using burner phones. So phone records show that the burner phone was located in Massapequa Park within 2 minutes of that text being sent. So then, according to a witness, later that day on the 2nd, Amber was again contacted by the same client that was in the house the night before with the avalanche. That's a quote probably from the witness. Amber told us that he wanted to see her again, but he didn't want to come back to the house because of her boyfriend. So then later that night, on the 2nd at 9 p.m., the same burner phone from the previous evening again communicated with Amber. During this communication, the burner cell phone used a cell site in Midtown Manhattan. Following this communication and based upon the cell records, the cell phone then traveled to Massapequa Park and had contact with Amber's phone at 10:39 p.m. and 11 p.m. They also said that Amber left her own cell phone behind and she walked out the front door of the residence and was seen alive for the last time. Shortly after Amber left the house, a witness observed a dark-colored truck pass the house, specifically coming from the direction that Amber walked towards. So it seemed like she walked outside and his truck was out there waiting and she got in his truck. All of the girls' remains were found between December 11th and the 13th. All the victims were, this is kind of why they think they were all connected initially. They were all petite females, approximately 22 to 27 years old. They were all missing pieces of clothing or personal items. They'd all been killed by homicide. All had contact shortly before their disappearance with a person using a burner phone. The cell phones of Maureen and Melissa were each used by the killer after their deaths to check their voicemails or taunt their families. And each of the 4 victims were found similarly positioned and bound in a similar fashion, either by belts or tape. All 3 victims were found wrapped in a burlap type material. They say all 3 victims. I don't know if that means only 3 of them were wrapped in the burlap.
I think maybe it means the 3 that he's been charged with so far.
On.
Yeah. I think that's what that means.
So police allege that Rex carried out these murders while his wife and children were out of town each time they were away, either visiting Iceland or other places.
I feel like they've been very vocal about that. So they are really kind of emphasizing that they don't seem to believe that the wife, especially, I guess, knew anything about these murders, which I find that so hard to believe now, especially with all this stuff that's come out. But anyway.
Yeah, or she could have just been scared of him too and ignorance is bliss.
And when I say all the things that have come out, I mean the things in the house. Like, so now which we'll get into in a bit, but like the house looks small. It looks very run down. It's not like a mansion where you could hide and have rooms.
I heard it was very like hoarder-esque.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why there's just so much shit in it.
I would think that it would be dirty and messy, and that would explain some of the things that we'll get into as well.
Yeah. So there's been lots of questions about how police actually narrowed down the search and identified Rex as the suspect. So on February 15th, 2022, a task force was established for this case because they were finally like, all right, it's been like a decade, guys, let's get it together. So in March 2022, police discovered that Rex had owned a Chevy Avalanche pickup truck between 2009 and 2010. And like we mentioned, the pickup truck was seen at the scene of the crime when he was talking to Amber and meeting with Amber. So once they started looking into Rex, they also found that there were calls to the victims that originated from near his home in Massapequa Park and back and forth from Midtown Manhattan, which is where he worked. Investigators said they narrowed cell tower records from thousands of possible individuals down to hundreds and then to a handful of people. They focused on residents who matched the physical description provided by the witness who had seen the killer. It's crazy the stuff that they can narrow down just from kind of like the phone pings and then maybe seeing how many people had a dark colored Chevy Avalanche during this time. They could look that up and then narrow it down from there. I feel like too,
it was just amazing police work after they finally formed this task force, and especially considering a lot of the evidence, like the phone records and all that were a decade old. It's amazing. I wonder if they have more they haven't released, but this was all in the bail document, so I figure that this is a lot of what they have.
Yeah, so they were lucky that the police back in the day, because there's been a lot of talk about kind of the corruption of the Suffolk County Police and how they just did a shitty job investigating this, but they did get like the phone records and information from 3 of the girls' phones. That's another reason why Maureen's is a little more difficult, because I think that they don't have access to her cell phone information. Like they never got it, I read in the document. So that makes things a little more difficult. But yeah, it's good they had that information. And it seems like he was pretty consistent with the locations he was texting from. It seemed to be his house and his job, really.
He really got complacent, didn't he? I guess he just kept going because no one ever put him on the radar.
And it also helps once they started looking, that he had a semi-unique car and that he was just like a massive dude.
Yeah.
And he seemed to just be out and about, because even people were looking up his job on Google Maps, and you could see him out in the street on Google Maps outside of his job, just there, tall, looking like an ogre, same outfit as always. Anyways, they said they narrowed cell towers from thousands of possible individuals to hundreds, and then to a handful of people. They focused on residents who matched the physical description provided by the person who saw the killer. A series of taunting calls in which a male caller admitted killing and sexually assaulting Melissa were made from the phone to her family members from the vicinity of Rex's office during the summer of 2009. And according to the New York Post, the killer, who we now know as Rex, said to her sister Amanda, "Is this Melissa's little sister?" She said yes. He said, "Do you know what your sister is doing? She's a whore." The calls were always made in the evening, and they lasted under 3 minutes. This info is from a 2011 article that references Massapequa Park, talking about Mrs. Bartholomew, which is her mother. She said he wouldn't talk to anybody but her, referring to the sister. "One time I answered and he hung up as soon as he heard my voice." But she kept a note of the conversations while police pinpointed the caller's location in Times Square, Madison Square Garden, and Massapequa, a short drive from Gilgo Beach in Suffolk County.
And joining us now is Suffolk County District Attorney Raymond Tierney. Raymond, you just held a press conference announcing the charges against Rex Heuermann. You arrested him yesterday after this decade-long investigation, but really all the work seemed to really happen in the last, 13 months?
Yep, since March of 2022, March 14, 2022. That's when we identified, or the defendant, Heuermann, was identified as a suspect for the first time, and that's really when we focused all of our investigative resources on him.
And what was the breakthrough in all of this case? I mean, there have been so many years where nothing happened. This task force comes together. Was it just different minds all coming together? Tell me what broke it for you. What broke this thing wide open?
Well, I mean, I think there was some, interesting evidence. There was great phone evidence that was developed by the FBI, which had developed 2 areas of interest in the area where it turned out the defendant lived, and another area where it turned out he worked. There was also a eyewitness evidence with regard to an individual who matched his physical description, being with the victim, Amber Costello, on the night before she disappeared, and also before she left. Amber Costello said, "I'm going to meet this guy again."
Right.
So all of those things taken in conjunction with the hair evidence, the advancements in mitochondrial DNA, and then putting it all together, getting abandonment samples, not only from the defendant, but from family members, and then being able to compare some of that DNA that was left at the scene with the defendant and his family's DNA.
Did you have the defendant and his family under surveillance for this entire past year?
Not for the entire past year, but we, starting, once we developed him as a suspect, and then once we developed him as a suspect, we executed about 300, subpoenas, search warrants, and once we learned more and more about him, we ended up, with the help of the FBI as well as the Suffolk County Police Department, putting him on extensive surveillance.
So the bail document that we've been talking about, there's tons of Google Maps type images of where kind of these calls pinpoint, like where Rex's phone is, where the victim's phone is, where everything is, that are really interesting to look at. So, I mean, we posted the document a few times on our Instagram, but we'll link it with this, or it'll be on the blog. So yeah, if you want all the details of that, it's really interesting to see kind of all the pinpoints pictured out in front of you, because you can see how they really were able to narrow it down. This is an interesting quote from the article we were just talking about. It says, "Without question, this guy is smart. This guy is not a dope. It's a guy who thinks about things."
So, according to the bail according to the bail application documents, Rex also used burner phones to contact other sex workers and massage parlors. He created false names for an email account, which he used to search for, quote, sex workers, sadistic, torture-related pornography, and child pornography. We'll get into a bit more about his searches in a minute, but we're kind of going through the bail document as it reads. We know now that Rex was likely in the same location as the victims' phones and the burner cell phones that were used to contact some of the victims. In one case on July 10, 2009, the records show that the burner phone and Rex's phone were in the same location and traveled together from Massapequa to New York City. And Melissa and Rex's phones traveled eastbound together towards Massapequa. One of the emails he used was to send selfies to solicit and arrange for sexual activity. They've actually released the photo of him.
So embarrassing.
He's like a real, like so many people are like, this is exactly what I pictured he would look like. And it is true.
Totally.
He's just a creepy, a lot of people have said he, like you said, an ogre. He's a creepy.
Like washed up.
Yeah. Another email was used to search for podcasts and documentaries about the investigation, as well as images depicting the murdered victims and members of their families. So I have read that he loved to listen to podcasts about the case, which is creepy. He made an AOL account under the name John Springfield, and kind of his username was SpringfieldMan9 in January 2011. As of December 2022, he was still using that account, and police have determined that he used a burner phone to access that account. Police even found CCTV of Rex putting, in phone stores, buying these phones and putting minutes on the phones. They've put that in the document. He's wearing like a strappy shirt and his man bag that he always carries everywhere.
This has really made me wonder how many people actually use burner phones. I'd love to see a statistic. Like, is this a normal thing? Is it weird? I don't know anyone who's used a burner phone, I don't think.
Well, no. Like the only case I can even think of where we spoke about burner phones was Bo Man. Remember he had like 11 burner phones or something like that. So
yeah, I feel like the only time people use burner phones is when they're doing something sketchy, but maybe I'm wrong.
They don't want anyone else to know about.
Yeah.
So after they formed the task force last year, in July 2022, a detective took 11 bottles from a trash can outside Rex's house. And then by January this year, he was under regular surveillance. Investigators saw him throw a pizza box into a sidewalk garbage can outside his office, and they took the crusts and swabbed them for DNA. They've put photos in. They've taken a photo of the bin with the pizza box in it, and then they've got a photo of the open pizza box, and it's got like a plate and the crusts. So he really messed up when he did that.
It's just giving like total slob vibes. But it's funny because I was telling Mike about that. I was like, it's crazy. Like they got him using pizza crust, and there's a picture of the box with the pizza grease and the tinfoil, the paper plate, and the pizza crust in there, like a very New York City thing. I'm sure it's an everywhere thing, but Mike and I always argue, not really argue, but I never eat pizza crust and he eats the pizza crust, so I'll give him mine. He was like, see, that's why you have to eat your pizza crust.
Don't leave anything behind.
Especially if you're a criminal.
So on February 24th this year, a forensic lab concluded that a hair that was found on Megan's remains matched the DNA from one of the bottles. It is believed that the DNA belonged to Asa. There is no, as we said, there's no indication that Asa knew about the murders as she was out of the area at the time that happened. We've had a few questions like, how could she have not known? Why would her hair have been on him? I feel like, as we mentioned, their house seems like it probably wasn't the cleanest and tidiest house. Hair is very difficult to get rid of.
My hair gets everywhere.
Yeah. It just takes one hair to be on his shirt, then to transfer, and I've never seen anything about animals, but for example, dog hair gets everywhere. So I'm not surprised that it belonged to her, even though she apparently had nothing to do with it.
My hair gets absolutely everywhere all the time. Like my hair's longer, so it just is all over the place. But even I saw them saying that could just mean that like the burlap or the tape was also kept in the house because maybe the burlap was somewhere. It was just like hunting type burlap, like it was camouflage, so I don't think it'd be like particularly suspicious if she saw that in the house, but maybe that got hair on it from being in the house. Maybe the tape got hair on it because it's sticky, or if she could have just been in his car, her hair gets in his car, then the girls are in the car. Trace evidence transfers way easier than people think.
Yeah. So a hair found on Amber's remains was tested. It also matched the D on the bottle. So as you mentioned that, this could mean that anything he used in the killings could have come from the house.
Mm-hmm.
Between March last year and June this year, Rex used the same email account to look. He did more than 200 searches about serial killers and articles about the task force investigating the Gilgo Beach killing. So they did list all of his Google searches. Do you think I should run through them? Maybe I'll just kind of...
Maybe leave out the overly graphic ones.
Yeah. If you want to read every single search that he did, they are on the blog in the court documents. Some of them are disgusting and very, very graphic. So I'll run through them. I won't read out the really, really, really graphic ones, but they're all on there. But the first one, Mistress Long Island, Mature Escorts Manhattan. That is an interesting search that a lot of people believe he may have been starting to transition from the younger escorts into older women, and that's part of the reason why the police arrested him quickly, because they believed he may have been getting ready to start again.
Yeah.
Girl begging for rape porn, teen girl begging for rape porn, pretty girl with bruised face porn, torture redhead porn, 10-year-old schoolgirl. I won't read the next one. Skinny redhead tied up porn, short fat girl tied up porn. He did seem to have a thing for shorter women as well. A lot of the women were very petite and small. Tied up and raped porn. One that a lot of people think is an interesting kind of search term is Asian twink tied up porn. If you remember from our last episode in the blog, there is an Asian male victim of apparently the Long Island serial killer. That victim has never been identified. The victim was found wearing women's clothing. Everything indicates he was 17 to 23, and it's possible that he may have lived as a woman. If you don't know what a twink is, it's classified as a gay or bisexual young man with a slim build and youthful appearance. So that could relate to that other victim that has never been identified. There's a few really graphic ones we'll leave out. He did a lot of searches for child images, 10-year-old blonde-haired girl, chubby 10-year-old girl, black girl 10 years old, girl with face beat up, chubby 10-year-old girl crying, 13-year-old schoolgirl, age 10 child girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, blonde hair girl young depressed, teen girl oiled bodies, preteen girl with makeup, nude slave girls, old janitors, gangbang, little schoolgirl crying teen porn. So this is what
you get the gist.
Yeah, of what he was looking
just
for.
A lot of deranged searches.
So they are kind of the sexual and porn searches that he did. In terms of searches regarding the case, this is what he searched for. Why could law enforcement not trace the calls made by the Long Island serial killer? Why hasn't the Long Island serial killer been caught? Long Island serial killer. Long Island serial killer phone call. He was really obsessed on the phone. I guess he was probably getting a bit worried that, that would be the one way they could track him.
Yeah.
Long Island serial killer update. Long Island serial killer update 2022. FBI active serial killers by state 2023. Map of all known serial killers. America's 5 most notorious old cases. 11 currently active serial killers. 8 terrifying active serial killers we can't find. He Googled John Bitroff, who was kind of, I believe a suspect originally in the Lisk case.
Yeah.
He Googled all the victims, Megan Waterman, Melissa Bartholomew, Maureen Brainard Barnes. He also looked at cops launched Gilgo Beach Homicide Investigation Task Force, mapping the Long Island murder victims, inside the Long Island serial killer in Gilgo Beach, the Gilgo Beach killer, criminal minds, in Long Island serial killer investigation. New phone technology may be the key in to break the case.
When I was reading these, I was waiting for him to look up, why is Long Island Stealer so cool and elusive?
There's been all these women or people that have come out and said that they had encounters with Rex, and apparently he met up with a woman who I believe may have been a sex worker, and apparently when he met up with her, he was asking her questions like, have you heard of the Long Island serial killer? What do you think? He would ask people who he met questions about the case.
Mm-hmm.
This is a TikTok from interior designer Dominique Vidal, who was in a networking group with Rex.
It all just seems really off and disturbing. So, towards the end of this conversation, that's been all about him, I try to redirect it towards finding common interests. So, one of the things that I always pull out of my conversation, toolbox is, oh, do you listen to podcasts? Who doesn't love a good podcast? Of course he doesn't. And he asks me the first thing about myself, and he asks back, do you like any podcasts? And I say, yeah, I listen to some comedy, history ones, and then I used to listen to a lot of true crime, but it's a little dark for me, so I don't really listen anymore. And he asks me, do you have a favorite case? A favorite true crime case? And I say, no, I don't. I have a podcast I used to listen to, Crime Junkie, and he asks me if I know. I'm not making this up at all. I'm just so shocked. I need to share this with somebody, all of TikTok. He asked me, do I know about the Gilgo Beach murders? And of course I do. And I'm like, yeah, of course I know. And he goes on to tell me, yeah, that's a serial killer that was never caught in my hometown, my neighborhood where I live and tells me the guy killed 10 people and he might still be out there. And I make a joke and I'm like, yeah, you never know who you're talking to. Anybody could be I could be a serial killer. And he laughed at that. And I just cannot stop running that conversation over and over in my head, and I'm really disturbed. And I'm going to my parents' house right now because I can't deal with this. I'm disturbed, I'm upset, I'm disappointed.
So Rex was arrested in New York City on July 13th. As we mentioned, we believe that the arrest was probably brought forward because Rex may have been aware that the police were onto him. As we mentioned too, he hasn't been charged with Maureen's murder yet, but the court documents say that part of the case is expected to be resolved soon. They believe law enforcement did say that they were concerned that Rex would start killing again, I guess, if he had a break, if he remained free due to his continued patronising of sex workers at all hours of the night. The Suffolk County DA Ray Tierney spoke about the timing of the arrest. He said, "We were playing before a party of one. We knew the person responsible for these murders would be looking at us." And he also spoke about other victims. He said, "There are a lot of other victims in that area. There are a lot of victims' families that want closure, so that's what you work towards." The New York Governor, Kathy Hochul, said, "Yes, the day has finally come when someone who's so depraved of heart, who would kill innocent individuals in their prime of their lives, is finally brought to justice." The Suffolk County Police Commissioner, Rodney Harrison, said, "Rex Heuermann is a demon that walks among us, a predator that ruined families. If not for the members of the task force, he would still be on the street today." So Rex pled not guilty during his first court appearance, which was Friday, July 14th. His court-appointed attorney, Michael Brown, said that Rex was in tears and said, "I did not do this." I have read that Asa was in court supporting Rex on that day, but we'll get into what happened after that. Once everything started coming out, she changed her mind.
Yeah.
So Rex is due in court again on the 1st of August. So after the arrest on the weekend of July 15 and 16, police searched a storage unit that Rex had rented. Detective Lieutenant Kevin Bayra told News 12, he said, "We've executed a search warrant for one of the storage units in relation to the Gilgo suspect case." On the same day, police were seen removing multiple weapons from Rex's house. He had permits for 92 firearms, but they found more than 200 in his house.
Crazy. How could you even have that many in a space? Imagine 200
like
firearms
house
in your house.
I'm assuming it looks like maybe max a 3-bedroom, 1-story. Where is he keeping all this stuff?
It's probably maybe a little bigger than my apartment. Plus, there's a basement, it says. And I think the basement is where they were finding a lot of the weird stuff, so it seems like that was his area. But I could not imagine 200 firearms in one house.
And I think police were aware at least of the 92 weapons that he probably had, and that's why they arrested him at his office and not at his house, which makes sense.
Yeah, they literally arrested him right out in the street. He's just swarmed by 10 guys in suits. It's crazy to see. It looks like something out of a movie.
They've been kind of super open with the search. There's been tons of videos and photos of police and investigators carrying stuff out of the house, which is interesting because I feel like usually they kind of try and cover things up and put things in bags and, but they've been very openly photographed. One of the things they carried out was a child-sized blonde doll that was kept in a large wooden and glass case that had flowers around it. There was also an artwork that I posted on the Instagram, and it looked like kind of a bruised and battered blonde woman.
It was really weird.
Yeah, it looked very creepy.
And she looks like kind of at least two of the victims. Obviously just being blonde white girls, but similar look.
A police source told the New York Post, "We're just going through his house looking to see if there's any evidence, if he has any trophies from the victims whose bodies he dumped at Gilgo Beach." I think it was you who posted on Instagram too. Yeah, there was a whole bunch of people standing around looking in this toolbox that looked like it had stuff in it.
They can't see in the picture.
No, you can't see what it is.
But they said they photographed it and stuff, and everyone came over to look at it.
Yeah, it was a whole bunch of people what is going on? So there's a lot of stuff in and out of this house.
And then today, or was that yesterday, they said that one of the reporters there said it seemed like they were kind of moving trucks around to obscure the view from reporters. And it looked like that they were maybe going to bring out something big that they didn't really want the reporters to see. I guess they did a good job hiding it because we never really did hear what that was or what it could have been.
Suffolk Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison calls the search fruitful at the Massapequa Park home of accused serial killer Rex Heuermann.
There have been items that we have taken into our possession. That makes it fruitful.
Adding, every single crevice in the home is being examined. In the backyard, a backhoe dug a crater where investigators were seen bagging potential evidence, ground-penetrating radar, and cadaver dogs at work. And the top cop confirmed the existence of a walk-in basement vault with a large iron door.
There's not a soundproof room. There is a vault where he secured numerous amount of guns.
Heuermann is charged with 3 murders and is a prime suspect in a 4th. Their bodies left along the desolate Gilgo Beach Strip. Neighbors' lives are upended by the massive crime scene, but
as long as they need to stay, they need to stay. You know, there's a lot of things that are unsolved.
And everybody wants to know, what's going on, really. What they will find in that house.
Some wonder why the break in the case didn't come years earlier after this roommate of victim Amber Costello told the Associated Press he gave police a description of the hulking suspect and his green pickup truck more than a decade ago.
What you have to understand is, when they're getting that's lost within a sea of other tips and information they're getting. And at the time, there wasn't really any, coherent leadership.
So police in both South Carolina and Las Vegas have announced that they are also looking into the case. Rex owned a timeshare in Vegas for many years, and Craig, who's Rex's brother, lives in South Carolina. Rex had apparently planned to retire with Craig. It's interesting to me, which I know is a bit of backtracking, but how he had all these tax and financial issues, but he owned a timeshare, he owned property in South Carolina. Like, he owned a lot of things for someone who was having all these financial issues.
Yeah, apparently I just need to start scamming to get further along in life, because you hear about Alex Murdoch, this guy, they're all just doing shady shit for so long before they get caught. And usually they get caught because they do something stupid, like they start murdering people.
Yeah. So the Vegas police said, we are aware of Rex's connection to Las Vegas. We are currently reviewing our unsolved cases to see if he has any involvement. So we spoke earlier about the Chevy Avalanche. So after Rex was arrested, police impounded a second Avalanche from the South Carolina property that Rex and Craig owned. I have read now that they believe that this was the truck that he did own in 2009, 2010. South Carolina police said during the investigation and prior to the arrest, the Chester County Sheriff's Office was requested by the Gilgo Beach Task Force to assist in gathering evidence relevant to their investigation. And basically they're working with them and the FBI. So they haven't really had anything additional come out from that yet. So despite attending his first court appearance on Wednesday, July 19, Rex's wife Asa filed for divorce. It's funny because Rex's attorney made a statement after the arrest saying Rex was a loving husband and that he and Asa had been married for more than 25 years. And
she's like, nope.
She's had enough. Her attorney, which I don't blame her attorney told ABC on Wednesday that she had no comment. So there's so much information coming out every day. We probably need to do another episode depending on what else keeps coming out. But police have said today that they believe Rex may have killed at least one of the victims in his home, which I guess would explain why there's so much investigation still going on there. And today, 2 law enforcement sources told CBS that they are looking to see whether or not Rex could be connected to other unsolved murders in the country. They are looking into this. I think there's been 4 murders of sex workers in Atlantic City in New Jersey to see if there could be any connection.
Yeah, that's the Eastbound Strangler is what they called that one.
So that is kind of it up to date in terms of the investigation into Rex and his arrest and what has happened since.
There's lots of people coming out now as well who have interacted with him either through work or I don't know if they're sex workers, but he solicited them in some type of way or went on dates kind of. Everyone's kind of coming out for their 15 minutes of fame on TikTok and everything. But from what I've gathered from the ones I've seen or listened to is that and again, this is hindsight. If you didn't know he was a serial killer, would you still be saying this? But I could see some of the stuff they said. They say it was kind of condescending to girls, kind of pretentious, talked down to them in a business sense. One girl said he was just super weird, having a conversation with him. It was awkward and uncomfortable, just stuff like that. There's one interview he did too that was out before this happened. So But people on TikTok picked it up where he was talking about how it was always handy to have a hammer with you or something. And he was kind of like making jokes about intimidating people with the hammer.
If you were a tool or an object to help you in your to help you to bring your business to greater heights, what would it be?
That's an interesting question.
I know.
Because for what I do, we have to have so many tools in the toolbox.
Just one.
Just one.
Just one. Or an object. It doesn't have to be a tool. It can be an object.
You know what?
Yeah.
I know.
Listen closely.
One of the things I learned from my father was furniture building.
Okay.
He was an aerospace engineer and built satellites. And
runs in the family, building things.
And built furniture at home. And I still build it in the same exact workshop.
So
I have one tool that's pretty much used in almost every job. And it's actually a cabinet maker's hammer.
Okay, cabinet maker hammer. Okay.
It is persuasive enough when I need to persuade something.
Not someone.
Something.
Weird.
And it always yields excellent results. Yeah. And at the end of the project, whatever piece of furniture or what I'm working on, it always helps it come out beautifully.
Okay, great. So you would be kind of that kind of hammer for your business? That's what you're saying? If that doesn't exist, that's what you would be?
Sometimes I have to be the heavy framing hammer.
The heavy framing hammer.
Other times I'm the lightweight hammer just to nudge things along.
All right. I guess it's a hammer. We got it.
There's been some talk about Shannon Gilbert, the other possible victim, and I believe that she may have had like a drill mark or something on her like that. So people have been like, he's into tools. Maybe it was him.
Fresh butt? Fresh butt's meowing. A change. What? You want to be on the podcast? Do you hear him?
Yeah.
Shh, why are you meowing? No.
So one other thing that was kind of interesting when we found out who is probably the suspect of a lot of the murders is that at the Gilgo 4 scene, a belt was found. I think we did talk about it in our original podcast, but maybe it came out after. But anyway, the belt, they've got released photos of it. It looks like it's got the initials HM or WH. Police said at a press conference in 2020 that the belt didn't belong to any of the victims and they believe that it was handled by the suspect. So it's interesting now that his last name is Heuermann. I don't know, like HM, Heuermann, or I don't know, like obviously it's just interesting.
I feel like that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Unless, I don't know. It's a weird coincidence if not.
Yeah.
I think because the belt, one of the girls, because they only talked about the 3 of them. 2 of the girls were bound up with tape. And then one of the girls was bound with 3 belts, so I'm sure that it was one of the belts used to bind the one girl.
I'd be interested to know how big the belt was, because he was a big guy,
true.
like the length of the belt.
Yeah.
So I did find some other interesting information just about serial killers generally. There's a quote from James Allen Fox, who's a professor at Northeastern University, and he studied serial killers for more than 40 years. He said, the thing about serial killers, at least the ones that are more prolific, is that they are often extraordinarily ordinary. He said they tend to be extremely careful not to leave any evidence behind, which I don't know if is 100% true in this case, but he didn't leave a lot, I guess, to be able to be free for over 10 years. He said they generally have jobs and families and they kill part-time. It's not their sole activity in life, which is true in this case. The University of Michigan have also done a study on serial killers. It says the US leads the rest of the world in documented serial killers with 3,613 serial killers as of 2020. England is second with 176. So I know England has a smaller population, but still 3,600 compared to 176. It's crazy.
Big jump.
1986 was the peak year in the US for serial killings, which we've spoken about in the past. Probably as technology has increased, the ability to be a serial killer has decreased. Serial killing was at its highest point between 1970 and 1990, which is where some of the most well-known serial killers were active, like Bundy, Dahmer, Ramirez, Gacy, all those.
It's funny because he was like he was like a later serial killer, because when it first came up, people were asking me about it. I was like, I don't know. He was like a serial killer by starting like the 80s, 90s, and then it was like, oh, the 2000s actually.
Most serial killers kill for either financial gain or enjoyment, with 32% on record saying they killed for financial gain, which is interesting to me. I feel like most serial killers don't seem to kill for, I don't know. I would think definitely it would have been pleasure. And apparently only 25% have killed for pleasure. I would think it would be a much higher figure.
I can't think of any for financial gain.
I feel like female serial killers possibly, like Eileen Warnos was one, I believe, who stole from her victims, but I don't know, is it really financial gain? I don't know. Anyway. Anger is cited as a primary motivator for another 18% of serial murders, and gang activity accounts for 6%. I feel like anger and pleasure can kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah,
it seems
together.
like in this case, he did it because he enjoyed it, but he was also very angry at women. If you just look at his Google searches about, abused women and abused children, he obviously had something angry going on.
And all the girls that came forward that had talked to him before said he was kind of like a condescending asshole to all of them.
Yeah. I would love to know what happened in his early life or his childhood, or why he has turned out like this. So his brother, I've read, is not the nicest person either. Like, his brother obviously has had legal trouble. It seems like they were kind of, I wonder if the brother knew about it, if the truck was housed and kept there the whole time. I don't know. Anyway, I guess more will come out.
A lot of people are saying that they think that he's probably going to be connected to way more victims than is like originally being thought, which it could be from what it seems like. This guy is absolutely deranged. I wonder, and did he stop killing with the Gilgo 4? Because that was like, what, in 2009? Has he done nothing else since then?
I think they went missing between 2007 and 2010. Yeah, so did he do nothing between then? We don't know.
And for whatever reason, police seem to think he was like ramping up to cause trouble again. He was trying to meet with sex workers again. So that was one reason why they were like, all right, we need to intervene.
A media agency took a photo of an investigator coming out, and the investigator had a notebook, and they took photos of what was written in the notebook. So it's obviously things they've found in the house. It says torn man's shirt with stain in bag in workshop, keys and handcuff keys on the shelf under workbench, rope in vault, I believe I read like he had a big, I'll talk about that in a sec, but yeah, rope in vault, rope in shop. And then it goes in to say that basically, I'll just find it where I said, it says that a neighbor saw him carrying a heavy object that turned out to be a safe door into the house, and that he told the neighbor, this is to protect my guns. So I'm assuming that is the kind of vault thing they were talking about.
Yeah, I'd love to see what's in that house. Not even specifically from the crime scene standpoint of just, I feel like he probably has a lot of weird shit.
There's photos of like stacks and stacks of pornographic magazines. Like, this is how old school
like,
he is,
you
I
lived
guess.
there with your wife and kids. Like, did he not let them into the basement maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe this was all in the vault. I don't know. I wonder how big this vault was, but
I'm assuming, I don't know, I'm getting the vibe of like maybe Asa, the wife and kids, were just kind of afraid of him.
Yeah.
She could have been a domestic violence abusive situation where she was scared of him also. Maybe he was like, nope, you guys don't go in the basement.
Yeah. And I guess if it was filthy and it was all his shit down there, you'd just be like, okay, whatever. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't need to go down there. Yeah, I'll be interested to hear more. I'm assuming that the family probably won't be allowed to speak really, but I'm very curious about what his wife or anyone that was close to him will have to say one day about
it's
all this,
interesting
or just
because
what was in the house. Like,
in some cases you get the people who were close, like, a neighbor, like I guess the neighbors have kind of spoken, but there's no one really who's come out and said, yeah, I knew him for 40 years, I could never have pictured this. Like, there hasn't really been, it's just been people who have known him on and off for the last little while that have come out.
I need some of his coworkers to come out, but I'm sure the company was like, do not speak to reporters. and I'm sure they're all part of the investigation.
And he owned the company, so now essentially they don't have jobs, I assume,
And a lot of the neighbors who did talk said the whole family was kind of reclusive and didn't really come out or talk much. So
yeah.
Is that the right word? Reclusive?
Yeah, reclusive, yeah.
I always doubt myself. But yeah, so I think that is really it for what is out right now. And I mean, there's not really many, you can't really talk about like theories and stuff because there's not really theories.
I guess the only
or
kind
anything
of
like that.
question at the moment is he responsible for all of the Long Island serial killers or just these 3 to 4? Is he responsible for other killings in other places?
I feel like he is responsible for all of them, because another one people pointed out, how you were saying with the twink, the Asian search that he did, one of the girls was black, right, and had a kid, and there was searches for
That was Peaches.
Specifically
Peaches, is that
Peaches.
one? Yeah.
Specifically searches for
black
child and things like that. We shall see, I guess. I'm sure lots more will come out by the time this episode airs or is released. So if there's any like major updates, I'll put in some clips here. But just for the record, we are recording this on July 20th. Right now it is 8 p.m. here at my time in New York. So that's up to date as of right now.
Nicole, the DA said that he can't say one way or another whether this house is considered a crime scene. Now, for 12 days, we have watched boxes of evidence being removed from the Heuermann property, and soon all media will have to leave this neighborhood. But first, we were given close-up access to the Heuermann home for the first time since we've arrived here. And the house of the suspected serial killer does not match the description of Heuermann at work: successful and detail-oriented. It feels out of place next to the others on the street. We are told his home was also full of clutter, extending the length of the investigation of the property. We also learned that 279 weapons were taken from the vault in Heuermann's basement. District Attorney Ray Tierney called the list of items recovered huge, but would not give specific details about what items were brought into evidence from the home or backyard. We now know that the backyard was excavated after ground technology picked up on disturbances in the Heuermann yard. DA Tierney telling us today no human remains were found, but investigators are still sorting through trace evidence recovered from inside the house and backyard.
Were any human remains found?
No. Well, what I would say is we're still going over the trace evidence, but they were asking about with regard to the excavation in the back if there were any large items of evidence recovered, and the answer to that question is no.
The DA does not believe that this investigation is limited to New York State, but interesting, Nicole, Heuermann, under New York State law, cannot have his DNA entered into the national DNA database unless he is convicted of a crime.
I just had a quick look at the timeline again, so before we sign off. But the first possible victim is from 1996, and then it went up to 2011. So I wonder why if he did stop, why he stopped, or did he move? I feel like that is a big gap in time for someone who may have killed all these people to just stop suddenly.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see what comes out.
All right, so that is it for this episode. We'll have a blog on it so that you can get the link to that document that has all that stuff in it and all of our sources and everything at truecrimesocietyblog.com. Follow us on Instagram if you don't already. We're always posting updates on there in our story, following all the ongoing cases. If you want to listen to the episodes ad-free, and also I'm doing early release, not like super early, but basically I'll release them. Episodes usually come out on Thursday. I'll release them sometime on Wednesday when I finish editing them instead of making you guys wait. And we'll do maybe some little surprise pop-up episodes here and there on Patreon. So if you guys are interested in that, check us out over there. And we're very grateful to anyone who subscribes. If you're listening on Spotify or whatever platform, make sure you subscribe, follow, whatever the word is for the platform that you're using, all that. It's big help to us, especially during the summer slump that we talked about. And share the podcast, rate it, leave us nice comments on Spotify. All those things. You follow our personal Instagram accounts. I forgot. Mine is StephSum_. Olivia's TCS Olivia. We're posting there. I try to post more there, but it's hard to not feel pretentious when you're posting by yourself. Like, I feel so stupid. Try to post more of my cats. We got a fresh butt shout out this episode. That was cool. But I think that's it. So stay safe out there, everyone. Thank you for listening. Peace out.
See ya.